Hello, everybody, and welcome in live to the 63rd edition of Texas Longhorns Live. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out what we're trying to build here, and we really appreciate when you do that. And this is now home of the #1 team in the country, the Texas Longhorns, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But how you doing today, Gerald?
I'm good, man. It is football season is rapidly approaching, so I'm excited that we get to keep talking about it, man. It's so close. I can taste it.
Yeah, I know. It is pretty crazy, and we're sharing the screen right now for you guys that have not seen the list yet. This is the list of top 25 teams in the country. #1, Texas. #2, Penn State. #3, Ohio State. #4, Clemson. #5, Georgia. #6, Notre Dame. #7, Oregon. #8, Alabama. #9, LSU. #10, Florida. We'll cut that off right there for now, and let's talk about and focus on the #1 team in the country currently, the Texas Longhorns. What was your reaction to this, Gerald?
I think when we talked about it last week when the coaches poll came out, I expected Texas to be lower in the poll, not by much. I expected them to be still one of the top 3 schools. The margin on this one is even tighter than the coaches poll. I mean, flip one first place vote from Texas to Penn State, and Penn State's the #1 team, right? So I think that, again, I think it feels like we're looking at, we talked about it with the coaches poll, I think we're looking at like tiers, right? I think there's probably a top tier chunk. That's, Texas, Penn State, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, maybe lump Notre Dame in there. I'm not sure, but then there's kind of a 100-point jump down to Oregon, Alabama. There's that grouping right there. So I think, Texas being among those top teams, I think anybody who knows anything would say Texas is one of the 5 to 10 best teams in the country. Again, very, very tight margin. I expected Clemson, Penn State, Ohio State, Texas to be 1 through 4. It puts a really big target on their back. I think the most interesting thing in the world coming out of this is that I'm pretty sure this makes Texas the first #1 underdog to open the season, right? Because I think they're an underdog at Ohio State, a 2.5-point dog, and they're the #1 team playing the #3 team. So it's just an interesting wrinkle to this. It's just I think it's going to be a really volatile year. And I think this top 5 top 10 is going to see quite a bit of shakeup.
Yeah, and I always think it's kind of interesting because people will throw out different stats about this. So the #1 team, I think out of the past 15 years, hasn't won the national championship 14 years or something like that. It's something crazy. Out of this top 10 as well, guys, one of these teams is going to fall out of the top 25 completely. There's also going to be a team that's unranked that will get into the top 10. And we'll get those predictions later because I do have a team in mind, not an SEC team. But I do think Texas, I'm fine with them being ranked #1 because we talked about this, Gerald. If they're overrated or not, they're overrated if this was an overwhelming #1. They're not an overwhelming #1, just like you said. We're talking 1 vote here. This is the closest AP poll since 1998. So we're talking 27, 28 years of having, an overwhelming team at the #1 position. That is not the case. 1 vote, Penn State's #1, or we're tied at Ohio State got 11 votes. Clemson got 4 votes. And I said under a comment under the last video of the coaches poll, someone guessed, where do you think we're going to rank in the AP? And I said, hey, I think we'll be between 1 and 3. And I thought the top 3 would be Texas, Penn State, Clemson in some order. Clemson was 4. That's the one that kind of surprised me a little bit. Georgia also getting a #1 vote actually shocks me out of this. I don't know who thinks Georgia's the #1 team in the country. I've yet to run into anyone thinks, yeah, Georgia's the #1 team in the country. But, hey, they did get a vote. Oregon all the way down at 7 also got a vote, which is also very interesting to me because guess what? They currently don't even have a starting quarterback. Neither does Ohio State, even though I think it's going to be Julian Sain. Everything that I've read seems to be pointing that way. Oregon, that to me is like a coin toss. But I'm fine with Texas being #1 here. And Steve Sarkisian actually, in the last hour, talked about this. He said, I was interested to see how my guys practiced today because they had the Saturday scrimmage. Then they had Sunday off. Then they had the practice. And right before the practice, guys, this AP poll was announced. He said it was a fantastic practice. They practiced their ass off. And guess what? The only ranking that matters is the #1 ranking at the end of the season. That is it. That is what we're chasing. So I'd really like to hear that from Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah, and I think the focus is right, and I think the mindset is right, and I think ultimately, I don't I think the years of undefeated national champions are done. And so I think folks who have Texas number one, and in fans' minds, I think still, and maybe it's just an age thing, right? I think back to the BCS era where like the number one team, you expected them really to go like wire to wire. It'd be the number one team, Texas and USC that year, USC the year before, right? It's like you think through that lens, and that's just not the case anymore with the state of college football. And so I think we need to take all of this with that proper grain of salt of like, 10-2 is going to be a top 15, top 10 type of team, especially those SEC teams, right? Texas, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, right? Those teams right there in the top 10. Somebody's got to lose, right? Thankfully, Texas only plays Georgia of that group, but 10-2 get you in the playoffs and has a shot at a national championship, right? Ohio State didn't win their conference last year, won a national championship. So I think this is just for me really drudging up all of kind of the old thinking that we need to abandon as it comes to thinking about success in college football, right? It's great to be the number one team at the start of the year. It's great to have these accolades and have those expectations, but ultimately your goal at some point is to be one of the 12 best teams in the country and get hot in January, right? That's really ultimately what your goal is at this point.
No, 100%. I mean, we saw that with Ohio State. They lose 2 games. Everyone's counting them out. They get hot. They were going to run, and they go on kind of a historic run. They kind of beat the crap out of everyone other than Texas. So that is the goal. I agree. I think the longer the playoffs are, it's not going to come down to who the best team really is anymore. I think it's going to come down to who's playing the best football at the time. Whereas in the 4 playoff era, I think you truly got the best champion because guess what? They only had to win 2 games. BCS, same thing. You got the 2 best teams playing for the national championship. You only had to win 1 game. You have to win 4 games right now to win the national championship. That's probably going to end up being 5 at some point. And it's going to be the team that probably has the least amount of injuries, the most depth, and gets hot at the right time. And I think Texas, honestly, they have that recipe. I think this offense will start to get better later in the year. I think the defense is going to be good right off the bat. And I think there's a lot of depth on this team. So they definitely have a profile of a national champion. But I will say this, the AP poll does do a pretty good job. Like, let's be honest here. 10 through 25s, there's going to be a lot of moving parts. The top 10, they do a pretty good job. Usually they're getting about 70% of that right. Those guys usually fall within the top 10 at the end of the year. So, Gerald, I'll ask you this question. I asked you about the coaches poll, and it's basically about the same. But who do you think falls completely out of this top 10 at the end of the year?
Yeah, it's hard for me not to go with LSU again. I think it's just there's so much variance in LSU, and I'm just not a believer in Brian Kelly as the current iteration of Brian Kelly, right? From what we've seen. And granted, people said the same thing about Steve Sarkisian when he got hired at Texas. I just haven't seen enough from Brian Kelly and that LSU team. Really, like, he's such a good coach. I think he gets in his way sometimes. He overthinks things, overanalyzes things, moves away from tendency or things that are working because he wants to do something different. So LSU is the one that I've got my eye on. Honestly, it's probably either Alabama or LSU. I think there's a ton of variance at both of those teams. I think Alabama, honestly, if we're looking at it, could go in the other direction as well. I think they're a team that probably could find their way up the rankings as well. But again, to answer your question, LSU is probably the team I have.
Yeah, Ty Simpson just got named the starter literally 15 minutes before we came on air. And
there you go.
I think that bodes well earlier in camp. They know that's the guy. Yeah. I think that's a good sign for Alabama. And I agree. I think Alabama actually, if we look as a roster, probably has the most talented roster in the sport. My issue is the quarterback play. Is it going to be good enough? If it is, I think they can win a national championship. With LSU, I agree. I just saw a clip funny again right before we came on Twitter, and it's Brian Kelly complaining when they're getting killed by Alabama last year. Hey, they're sending 10 guys. He was complaining to the ref about a call that the ref made because Alabama was still blitzing. I'm like, it's hard for me to imagine a guy complaining about that down by 30 points is going to win a national championship. I don't think the national championship head coach is going to be like, damn, they're sending 10 guys. Can you go easy on the flags you're throwing? I just don't see that. So I agree. I think it's either going to be LSU or Miami, honestly, falling outside the top 10.
Yeah, Miami's another one with a ton of variance. What are we going to get at the quarterback spot from them? I think that's another big question.
Last question. Out of unranked teams, so I can scroll down if you don't have it off the top of your head.
I've got it, yeah.
Okay. Who do you think finishes inside the top 10? So I think that's happened 17 out of the last 19 years.
So out of the teams that are not in the top 25 at all that's going to finish?
Yeah.
This is my dark horse. I really like them. I think Georgia Tech has a chance to shock some folks this year. I like Haynes King. I like Haynes, the running back, right? I think Haynes and Haynes is a really interesting combination. They've got some talent at wide receiver. I think they've got they're not going to blow anybody off the ball by talent, but I think they've got a team that can grind it out, that can run the ball, that can control the pace of the game, control the clock. So I really do think I think they're going to be playing for an ACC championship at the end of the year, and I think that very well could put them in the top 10 teams if they win that thing.
No, I don't disagree with that. I'm going to go with USC. So I put out my official Big Ten predictions on Twitter, and I just think USC was in a lot of close games that they lost last year. They were better than their 7-5 record. I believe they completely flipped that this year. I have them going 10-2, and I think 10-2 in the Big Ten is good enough to get you into the top 10 of this poll and into a college football playoff spot. Their defense got a lot better last year compared to 2 years ago, and I expect them with D'Anton Lynn to get even better this year. The question is the quarterback, but guess what? Lincoln Riley, that is the one thing I'll give him. He knows how to develop quarterbacks and have quarterbacks play pretty well. So I have USC jumping inside the top 10 that out of a team that's not ranked.
I think the Big Ten is going to be nasty this year, but I can't fault you for that. I think, if they can get some sort of pulse defensively, I never doubt a Lincoln Riley offense. That's ever the question I have. If they can get some sort of pulse off defensively, they could shoot up the rankings very, very quickly.
No, 100%. And I will say Oklahoma is ranked in this poll. They were not ranked in the coaches poll. They're ranked 18th here. I do think they should be ranked. It's hard for me to imagine there's 25 better teams than Oklahoma if they're healthy. Again, they were super injury plagued last year, especially at the wide receiver position. It's also hard for me to imagine that happens 2 years in a row, unless they just have a god awful strength and conditioning staff. Maybe they do. I don't know.
I got nothing. I know they got rid of Benny Wiley a couple years ago when Riley left, and that paid dividends for their strength and conditioning. So we'll find out. It could be, again, the SEC is going to be wild this year. I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, I'm excited to start the season because I'm done with all this talk and stuff. But especially on stuff, we're just projecting at this point. I want to actually have data, stuff to look at. My eyes tell me and be able to talk about it. Let's talk about this. So fall camp update scrimmage. The scrimmage was Saturday. The word that has come out from multiple sources is that the offense was behind the defense, which I'm not shocked by, but really only Ryan Wingo stood out on the offensive side of the ball, as well as I will say CJ Baxter, it looks like he downgraded knee brace wise. The brace does look smaller. He did play or get hit a little bit in the scrimmage. They went with a really quick whistle, which makes sense. I think that was a lot to build confidence as well, because guys, this is a serious injury you're coming back from. Got to have him right mentally. So does it worry you right now, Gerald, that the defense is trending better than the offense?
Not in the slightest bit. Honestly, I would be worried if I heard that the offense was well ahead of the defense, because I frankly think, and this is probably the Texas hubris coming through, I think this defense might be one of the best 5 units that they face all year, right? I think this is going to be one of the top units in the country. Once again, I've heard really good things about how well the defensive line played. And again, Texas's offensive line needs to kind of gel and come together. We knew some of that, but I think from what, from the vibes that I'm getting, the conversations I'm having, it seems like the defense is just that good. And ultimately, this is going to be one of the better, when Texas goes good on good, this is going to be one of the best defenses that offense faces all year long. And so ultimately, I think that's a good sign, right? If they came out the offense blew the doors off the defense, that'd have red flags going up for me, right? If the shoe was on the other foot, I'd feel much, much different about it. The defensive line is the strength of this team, and we knew that the offensive line for Texas had some questions. Despite the struggles there, Arch had a touchdown pass, couple touchdown passes there. So I feel okay with it. I think we knew what this team is going to be. It's why I've been saying, beating the drum, I think this Ohio State game is going to be a low scoring affair. I think that 3-point margin, that 2.5-point margin is going to be like a 24-21 or even a 20-17 kind of situation, something really, really tight, really low scoring. And ultimately, I think that vibes. If we're hearing similar things in the last week of the season, then I have a lot more concerns about the offense. But ultimately, I don't feel any sort of bad way about how the defense being better than the offense at this point.
No, I completely agree. I was actually on the Florida show yesterday breaking down that. So we'll have a couple of videos out for you guys talking about the Florida game. And they were asking about that as well. And I said, this might be the best defense Arch Manning plays all year. He might be playing the best defensive practice that he plays all year, and that's a good thing. We actually heard that a ton. If you listen to old Alabama players talk, guys, they always said, we were never worried about games because we were going against the best opponent in practice. Like the defense said, we're playing the best offense we're going to face, and the offense said we're playing the best defense we're going to face. And I think we're pretty close to that point of, is there a better defense Arch Manning will face this year? And my answer to that is probably only the first game of the season. I think there's a possibility Ohio State is as good as Texas defensively, but that's it. Like, I don't think any other team, maybe Oklahoma, but I think on the back end, we're better than Oklahoma. Defensive line, I think, pretty comparable, but I just think this is a really good defense, and I completely agree. We both said low scoring. Ohio State guys agreed with us when we did that show, and I still stand by that because I've heard the same thing from Ohio State. Their offense isn't where it needs to be, and I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to take 4 to 5 weeks for these teams to get into that second gear, third gear, and it is what it is. Our defense is good enough to win football games by itself right now. It just is. I mean, you have Colin Simmons, you have Anthony Hill, you have someone like Murad Watson that's getting rave reviews out of camp, and I'm not surprised because he was a freshman All-American. He's going to be a really good player for Texas. I think Alex January, a guy that I think is going to break out this year. I have loved him since he stepped on campus. I think he's going to be a household name at the end of this year. And then everything I'm reading, Malik Muhammad seems to be treating this as he should, as a contract year, and doing really well. Jalen Gilbo has, I haven't heard anything of, hey, maybe he can't play outside corner, which tells me he's doing a really good job. They aren't talking about sliding him back in. So I think he's kind of sealed up that job on the outside. That's a really good sign. Michael Taft looks really good in these practices as well, also sliding down to nickel. I think this team can be better defensively than it was last year. And that team last year defensively was one of the best Texas defenses of the 21st century. Since 2000, I think it's probably one of the 2 or 3 best defenses we've had.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to put it like above like 05. Like that 05 defense is an all-time great defense in college football, period, right? I could wax poetic all night about how good that 05 defense was, and compare it to like the Miami legendary defenses too. But ultimately, like I said, the Texas defense is going to be really stinking good, right? And they're going to keep Texas competitive. And that's one of the things that I think puts Texas in an enviable position as the offense starts to get rhythm, as the offensive line starts to get cohesion, starts to get some of that unity that you need to be successful at that spot. Like, the defense can keep you afloat. The defense is good enough to keep you in games, to win you games, to keep scores low, right? That is one of the unsung heroes of a lot of really good teams, that as their offense gets going, the defense is good enough. And defense wins championships is a cliche for a reason, right? I think we are in an offensive skewed league, an offensive skewed game right now, but ultimately Texas lost because the Ohio State defense made a couple more plays. Texas had a bad defensive breakdown end of the first half. Ohio State had a massive defensive play end of the second half, right? We think about offense is what gets all the shine and all of the accolades, but ultimately when push comes to shove, defense still wins championships. And this Texas defense can be really stinking good. I think the floor for this unit is really high. I think the ceiling, like you said, is one of the best we've seen in probably 20 years.
Eyes of Texas, we really appreciate that. Please hit that like button. Please
subscribe
down below. Yeah, and share this out with as many Texas fans as you know. Boyd, do you guys think Texas will need to win the game against Ohio State to push a fight for? No, I don't think we need to. Now, I will say this. The winner of this game, to me, is basically all but locked into the playoffs. Like, it's really hard for me to believe the winner of this game doesn't make the college football playoffs. So it is very important with that, because then that gives you – I know it sounds terrible talking about losing in sports and not caring as much, but guess what? If you win this game, Texas can lose 2 games out of the final, 11, and still make the playoff. That'd be nice to have in the back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, the win obviously is a feather in your cap, especially Texas going on the road, hostile environment, big non-conference win. This is part of why I think, like, folks that are fans of the expanded playoff, losing this game doesn't kill you in the playoff hopes, right? So it encourages teams to schedule these types of non-conference games, because you can go and have this massive matchup to kick off the year, and it doesn't have that negative impact, as big of an impact on your chances to make the playoff, right? Because if Texas loses this game and they go on and they're competitive in the SEC, they're in the SEC championship conversation at the end of the year, they're in a prime position for a playoff spot, right? And it's all coach speak, right? And coaches always say, like, our top priority is winning their conference or being competitive in their conference. And so ultimately, like for Texas, being competitive in the SEC, winning the SEC is also a guaranteed path to the college football playoff. So like, no, I don't necessarily think that they have to win this game. Now, do I want them to go into Columbus and absolutely wipe the floor with these dudes? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to happen? Jury's still out. I think it's going to be a very close matchup. I don't have a read on it. Obviously, I'm wearing burnt orange. I've got the diploma in the background, so I know what I want to happen. But ultimately, do I think Texas needs this to fight for a playoff spot? No, I don't.
No, I agree. Let's talk about this as well. So I brought up the CJ Baxter thing. Do you think this is a combination of these two things? They want to build him up, mentally to, let him know you can take these hits, you'll be fine. Or do you truly think like he's going to be on track and be 90% by the start of the season? Or do you think it's a mix of the two?
I think it's probably a mix of the two. I mean, when it comes to knee injuries like this, you have to be confident. And the way he plays, you have to be able to push off that knee and make a cut and run. And so I think they have to get him into speed and into rhythm and able to feel like he can push off that. Because if you play timid, you're going to not only play poorly, but you're going to get hurt again, right? So like you have to build up that confidence in the knee. You have to build that confidence in the explosiveness. You have to build confidence in your ability to push off and punish somebody. But I also think like, why have him take unnecessary contact if he doesn't need it, right? Why have him take those bumps and bruises in a preseason where I think you're going to need him throughout the season if you're really going to reach your goals and achieve what you've got? So I think it's probably a combination of the two. It's probably a little bit of helping him stay healthy for the year. Again, you don't need to take unnecessary bumps early in the season if you don't have to. It's going to be Texas plans on playing past December, right? That's for Texas. We're 5 months out for where Texas hopes their season ends. So ultimately, like, why have him take unnecessary hits coming off of an injury if you don't need to?
No, I agree. And my thing isn't with him like bearing weight with people on top of him or anything. It's more of cutting. Like, how is his agility side to side and everything like that? That's my biggest concern with him. And I hope he is like super close. I hope this was like a breakthrough and he's going to be way more healthy than I think he's going to be. Because I said last show, I don't think he's truly going to be close to 100% till like week 5 or 6. If he's 90% week 1, guys, this team becomes a whole different team. It really does. Like, he's a really big piece of this puzzle. He was last year. If this team had him last year, we're probably talking about possibly being the national champion. That's how big of a piece he is to this puzzle. So it'd be really big to have him straight off week 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at the butterfly effect of like the way the Ohio State game ended, right? Texas probably doesn't have to call a toss play if you've got your 220-something pound running back in there that can try to push it in between the tackles. So like ultimately, I think you're right. Like this is a linchpin. If he's good week 1, I feel a lot differently about Texas going into Ohio State. I really do.
No, I do as well. So that was the fall camp update and scrimmage update. I think Texas is right where they need to be. I'm not super concerned about it. Void says, yeah, I hear you. I'm just saying that because we also have Georgia, Florida, A&M, and Oklahoma. No, I agree. It's a lot harder of a schedule than people make it out to be. I agree. Compared to SEC schedules, it's weaker, but it's still a top 12, 13, 14 schedule in the country for sure. I think we play 4 of the top 25 teams or 5 of the top 25 teams. So really hard schedule, way harder than anything we would have had if we stayed in the Big 12. But in those games, for example, there's 4 opponents right there. If you go 2-2 in those games and you beat Ohio State, you're in the playoff. Now, if you lose to Ohio State, you got to go 3-1 in those games. And that's, those are 4 pretty good teams that you have to face.
And I'm old enough to remember that there's a team in maroon that used to say that there are no easy schedules in the SEC when Texas would give them grief about playing the bottom tier of the SEC, right? There are no easy schedules in the SEC regardless, right? So ultimately, it's going to be tough, right? Again, will DJ Lagway be available for Florida is now a question I think everybody has. So that's going to be something to keep in mind. A&M's going to want blood in that one. OU's obviously going to be weird. Georgia is Georgia. Like you're absolutely right. I think there's there's a lot of, if things go sideways on Texas, it can go sideways really badly, really quickly. I just don't think it's going to happen.
No, I don't either. And thing is with A&M, those glasses that they wear to see their team through, it's the same glasses they give you at a driving ed class where you look drunk. You just can't keep your head straight and walk in a straight line. So that's why I try not to pay attention to them because they have some crazy things that they say. But again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. This is the 63rd edition of Texas Longhorns Live. And with the season kicking off, guys, there's a really good chance to make some money here with college football or Voice of College Football bets. And right now, we're going to let you hear it from them.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.
There you go, guys. Yeah, I mean, Mark's done really well with that. I know I gamble a little bit, but I mean, he does really well with his predictions, and I think it's worth it, especially with Steve over there as well. He's been doing this. I mean, that's literally his livelihood. He does this for a living. So let's jump over to this. Better or worse for Texas this year? So we went through, we looked at Texas leading receivers, touchdowns, receptions, leading rusher, touchdowns, rushing yards, and then also points per game. As we'll go through those quick. Offensively and defensively. So, Gerald, last year, Texas offense averaged 33 points per game. Do you expect Texas to be better this year?
Oh, man. It's hard for me to say that. I think they're going to be slightly worse. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be a massive drop off. I don't think we're going to go from 33 to 23, but I could see, especially with some of the lower scoring games that I think they're going to have. I think, again, Ohio State off the rip. I think OU is going to be probably a lower scoring game. I think A&M is probably going to be a lower scoring game. I think Georgia might even be a lower scoring game. So I think there are going to be a lot of defensive slugfests on this schedule. And so I think you could see that number creep down to the 31-ish range. Again, I don't think it's going to be a massive drop off from, 30 points, 34 points a game, but I think you're looking at maybe a 31 point, because you'll still have some games where you put up some massive numbers. But I think ultimately there's going to be probably 5-ish games where Texas probably isn't going to clear 28 points because it's going to be a defensive struggle.
So I'm going to go above because I think they're going to blow teams out that aren't as good. So last year we were way better than Arkansas, guys, but that game was close. I don't think it's going to be that way this year. I think we're going to blow those teams out. So, Mississippi State was close for half, and it shouldn't have been. I think we're going to blow them out. Kentucky, same way, close for no reason. The only team we really blew out was Florida, and that's because, let's be honest here, they sat like half their team because they were nicked up and were like, probably not good to go in this game. Let's just keep them out, and we just kick the crap out of them in that game. Yeah. I don't see that happening in like big games. I would agree. I think at Ohio State, we probably score anywhere from 27 to 17 points. Georgia, same thing, 27 to 17 points. But I think in those games versus Arkansas, Kentucky, Mississippi State, I could see us putting up 40, 45 points just because we're much better. And I think we'll hit more deep shots with Arch Manning. So I think we'll be slightly better. I see us in the 35, 36 points per game range and really putting it on really bad teams.
I mean, I could definitely see that. Again, that part of that's mentality. Part of that is hitting open downfield shots. Part of that is quarterback health. And so the arrow is pointing in the right direction for that. I think I focus, I think when I think about this, on the lower scores and how I think those are just going to depress it so stinking much.
No, that's definitely fair. I think it's going to be close. I don't think we drop below 30. If we do, we didn't have a really good season. Points per game defensively, 15.5. Do you expect us to be lower or higher with that?
I think I have the same rationale, and I'm going to say lower. I think this defense is going to be good enough to hold some teams to 2 scores, a lot of teams to 2 scores to 14 points. I think there are a lot of teams that will just not be able to move the ball on this team. And I think, Texas has I do think their non-conference schedule outside of Ohio State is going to float that average quite a bit. I wouldn't be shocked if Texas pitches a pair of shutouts. San Jose State, Sam Houston, UTEP. No offense, I just don't think I see them scoring many points, if any, on Texas. And my favorite part is seeing the second unit guys, the garbage time guys, playing for pride and trying to hold that shutout. So when you have 3 zeros on the board to start the year, that average is going to shoot way down. And so I think ultimately, I do think they're going to go lower again, not by much. I think 15 is a pretty low number, almost 16 points. So I can see it being a 14.5-ish number when it's all said and done.
No, I'm going to say lower as well, but it's going to be close. I think it's going to be between 14 to 16 points per game. Like, we're talking, we might be half a point higher per game this year. And it's literally could be because we added Ohio State to the schedule instead of Michigan. Obviously, because Michigan was god-awful on offense last year. I don't expect Ohio State to be god-awful on offense, even if they're getting it together. It's going to be interesting. I agree. It kind of depends what we do in those 3 games between Ohio State and Florida. Like, if we pitch 3 shutouts, we're definitely going lower. If we don't, let's say those teams score 10 to 17 points, we're probably going to end up going higher. So I agree. I think it's going to be lower, but it's going to be really close.
Yeah, I mean, UTEP cycling a lot on offense. Sam Houston State, not great. Ultimately, they're cycling a bunch. I think they had 40 transfers at Sam Houston State, which is nuts. And then San Jose State is not, and they're cycling a lot on offense as well. So I think the defense has their number in those 3.
Okay, so let's jump right to the running back. So Trey Wisner obviously led the team in rushing with 1,064 yards. Do you expect anyone to be above that? And if so, who?
So I have to talk out of both sides of my mouth for a second, because Steve Sarkisian has not had a season where he hasn't had a 1,000-yard rusher, right? Every year as a head coach, Steve Sarkisian has had a 1,000-yard rusher. And I don't necessarily think that trend changes, but I'm curious. The thing that gives me pause, right, is CJ Baxter's health. And ultimately, like, does Texas put the number of carries on one guy to get them to that level? And I just don't think they do. So I think Texas probably goes under 1,000 yards. I think Steve Sarkisian's streak might be ending this year, simply because I don't know if they're not going to put, I will say, the wear on the tires of CJ Baxter to get to that point. And if CJ Baxter is healthy throughout the season, Trey Wisner is not going to get the volume to get there either. And so if you're number 1 or number 2, I think we could see Texas in a situation where you have 2 guys that are hitting 700 or 750, but I just don't think Texas has a 1,000-yard rusher this year.
No, I completely agree. So if CJ Baxter's healthy, I actually feel more confident about this, because I think you're going to get 3 guys with a decent amount of carries in Christian Clark, CJ Baxter, and Trey Wisner. I think there's a possibility you could have 3 guys with 500 yards each. Like, that's a real possibility if CJ Baxter's healthy. If he's not, then I do think there's a possibility someone does get to that number. I'm going to say no as well. I said that's what I have written down, so I'm going to stay with it. And I think Christian Clark, I really believe it. I think he's going to lead the team in rushing. I don't think it's going to be by a lot, but I think it's going to be like 738 yards to 675 yards, something like that, between Trey Wisner and Christian Clark. And then CJ Baxter is still coming back from health, because I don't know if he's 100%, 450, 500 yard type thing. So I think we're going to have 3 backs with over 400 yards, in my opinion. I think that's how that's going to work.
I can see that I can see that happening as well. Again, it's a thing of, I just don't think we're in a day and age where anybody's going to put that number of carries on a guy. It's just not how the offenses work nowadays.
No, and it's unneeded. And again, those 3 games, we may just have James Simon and Jared Gibson carry a bunch of those games, because, no offense, you don't really need the top 3 running backs to beat those teams. No. So, yeah, I just don't think you're going to get someone with 1,000. Now, if we win the national championship at the end of the season, maybe you do, because then you have all those games to play with. Someone does
4 extra games.
Yeah. So we'll have to see about that. But I'm going to go with no for 1,064 yards. Now, rushing touchdowns. Jaden Blue had 8, which kind of surprised me. He was the leader here. Do you expect someone to beat that?
I think so. I think there is going to be, and I think, again, this is a CJ Baxter situation. I think if you have CJ Baxter, he's a guy who can bang, who can kind of push the ball in the red zone. I also think if you've got a guy, if you're not trying to have CJ Baxter be that battering ram, then you're going to have your third running back who's probably going to be your goal line type guy. So whether it's Christian Clark or Jared Gibson, you get a guy in there who's going to be a 200+ pound thumper who's going to be your short yardage back. So ultimately, you've got, this is a reference, it's going to date me, you got like a Mike Allstott situation where Mike Allstott was snaking all of Warwick Dunn's rushing touchdowns because when they got inside the 3-yard line, you handed to your massive fullback. And so I think we could have a situation like that where if CJ Baxter's knee is still kind of iffy, then you have a guy who's your dedicated goal line guy. Because again, no offense to Trey Wisner, that's not his game. That's not his body style. It's not what he does. And so Jared Gibson, Christian Clark could be that guy. So I think there is a guy who goes over that number. I think there's a guy who probably touches 10. And I think it's based a lot around short yardage carries.
No, I agree. I think we're over here. I think it's either going to be Christian Clark or CJ Baxter. I think we're going to use Trey Wisner, in between the 20s, and then use one of those bigger guys in there and try to pound it in. And I think we're going to get there. And I think we're going to just be a better rushing team overall, more physical up front. So that's why I think we go over that. I think someone's going to have 9 or 10. Let's be honest. Jaden Blue's rushing touchdowns were not banging it in there in the red zone. They were, one cut, no one can touch me, I get to the end zone type rushes. So I don't really see that from anyone right now on the team, but I definitely think we're going to have some guys, at the 1-2 yard line being able to execute in the red zone and get more touchdowns. So I agree. I think we're going to have someone with 9, 10, maybe 11 rushing touchdowns on this team.
Love it.
Next up, let's go to the receivers. So this surprised me who led the team in receiving did, but when we get to the receptions, it surprised me who did. Matthew Golden had 9 touchdowns last year for Texas. Do you expect anyone to equal or eclipse that number?
I think I'm going no again. I think there's just going to be so many balls spread out across the wide receivers. I just don't see somebody having that dominant share of receiving touchdowns. Now, that being said, I went back and rewatched the Mississippi State game this year, and Arch and DeAndre Moore had a little thing going. So if that relationship continues and DeAndre Moore has, a touchdown and a half that's long per game, then ultimately he's going to go over that number. So, I'm going to go no, because I do think that there's just going to be so many guys involved in the game, but I do think, again, I really like DeAndre Moore. I think he could be the best wide receiver in the SEC when it's all said and done this year. Obviously there's that guy in Tuscaloosa we won't talk about, but I think DeAndre Moore has a chance to be a really, really elite, like all conference kind of wide receiver.
No, I don't disagree. I think there's 2 guys you can make the case for, and I'm going to make the case for the other guy. I'm going to say yes. I think Ryan Wingo is going to get 10+ touchdown receptions this year. I think he's going to be a force this year, guys. I just believe everything that I saw on the field in a limited sample size. He's way quicker than you think, so he's going to be able to, versus average and bad football teams, those 5-yard slants are going to be able to go for touchdowns because he's going to have more opportunities, or those screens that Sark loves to throw. And then he's able in the red zone to probably separate and get up and catch a football that when you absolutely need him to go get it in the air. I think he's going to be able to do that. So I think he's going to be versatile in the way he can score. And that's the reason I think he's going to have 10+ touchdowns. I really, really like him. There was, a top 5 list of the SEC wide receivers. He wasn't on there. I said, that's ridiculous. I had people call me a moron. From other fan bases. They said I forget his name, Rayland Sharp, I believe his name, at Arkansas was better, and I just laughed at that. So we'll throw those up there when they're wrong. And Ryan Wingo has a really big year this year, because I think you're going to get 700-800 receiving yards from him, and I think you're going to get 10+ touchdowns. I think you're going to get a lot of production from Ryan Wingo.
I think it's fair. He is an elite talent. He's bigger. Like the combination of size and speed that kid has should not exist in one person.
No, I just expect a really big year. I think he's going to actually have a pretty big game versus Ohio State as well. It wouldn't shock me if he comes out of the gate really hot. Next up, Gunnar Helm led the team in catches with 60, which kind of surprised me because I know I have a man crush on Jack Hendries. So we'll see if I go with yes or not here. But who do you think leads the team in receptions this year? And then do you think they're over that 60 number?
I think I'm going to go with the same justification after touchdowns and say no. I think there's just going to be so many targets, so many options. Wingo, Moore, you've got Endries, you'll have Emmett, Mosley, you'll have all. There's so many options, I think, in this scheme, and I think also they're going to probably pass the ball to the running back some. So ultimately, I think 60. I wouldn't be shocked if it's like a 55-ish or 54-ish, something close but not quite there. So no, I don't think Texas hits 60, but I do think it's probably a wide receiver this year. Again, You and I will go back and forth on whether or not it's Ryan Wingo or DeAndre Moore. Again, the connection that Arch and Moore had in that Mississippi State game, it just looked like they were sharing a brain when I rewatched those highlights. So like ultimately, whoever's going to be, I'm taking my flag in Moore. I got, dance with the one that brung you, to quote the great coach, Darrell K. Royal. So that's what I'm going to go with there. I think not quite 60, but I do think DeAndre Moore might be the man.
No, I agree. I think it's going to be between 50 and 60, and I think it's either going to be DeAndre Moore or Jack Hendricks. I think Jack Hendricks is going to be the safety blanket, just like most tight ends for Arch Manning. I think the difference is he's more athletic than Gunnar Helm, so he's going to be able to break some tackles, get more yardage after the catch. Well, I think he ends up with more yards than Gunnar Helm. And then DeAndre Moore is just really good at getting open on third downs. We've seen that throughout his career at Texas, and I think he'll bring a little bit more to the Texas offense this year. So those would be the two guys I see leading the team in receiving. I don't know who it's going to be, but I completely agree. I think it's going to be between 50 to 60 catches forever does it.
Love it.
Next up, we'll just jump over to the defense. Sacks, Colin Simmons with 9. Do you expect anyone to have more than 9 sacks?
I think Colin Simmons has 10 sacks this year. I think this might be the easiest one. Like, just stamp it and move right. I think Colin Simmons continues to be on a tear. I think he probably sets his own number. It could be higher than 10, but I think just conservatively, I think he hits at least 10.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Hill, I believe, have 8.5, so he's really close, right on the tail of Colin Simmons last year. So I do think someone gets there. My hot take is I think there's 5 guys with 5+ sacks on this team this year.
Wow.
Yeah, I think
it's a hot take. I like that.
I mean, I think we have the horses to do it. I think Trey Moore, Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, Brad Spence, and Ethan Burke can all get 5+ sacks. And if I'm wrong on one of them, I mean, we still have Zena Umlazulu, Lance Jackson, Justice Terry with the possibility of getting back there as well. So
my boy Vasic, don't forget about my boy Vasic.
I always forget him because he's, no offense to him, he's hurt all the time. So I always just like get him out of my mind. But no, he could too. Like if he's healthy, he could definitely get 5 sacks. That's what I'm saying. I think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be 5 guys with 5+ sacks this year. And I think Colin Simmons, I agree. I think Colin Simmons or Anthony Hill will end up with 10+ sacks. I don't know who it's going to be, but one of them is going to end up with 10+ sacks. So I agree. I think someone eclipsed that 9 number.
Yeah, and one thing I could see that would put Anthony Hill in that number is there's some talk of him playing more on the line, closer to an edge in the NFL. So I wonder if PK walks him up a little bit more than they have in the past. I think Texas still probably has him in a pure linebacker spot, but I wonder if they get him, some different looks where Texas rolls out some different packages and has him do other things. So I think that could definitely inflate his numbers quite a bit.
Well, yeah, and that's what I said, a while ago. Like I was watching McShay after the draft because he does a super early mock draft for next year, and he's like, everyone sees Anthony Hill as an edge, and I kind of always thought that as well, just because the body type, and he's just naturally good at going and getting the quarterback. Like we saw that, but Alabama first year, I mean, the dude has 2.5 sacks, and it's not even he just knows how to get after the quarterback really well. So I agree. And that's another thing. Maybe that's why they put Trey Moore at middle linebacker, because they say, hey, Trey Moore is closer to Anthony Hill at middle linebacker than but Anthony Hill is way better at edge than Trey Moore. I think that's a possibility, an argument you can make. So I agree, I think, with the sack number. Next up, let's go with tackles, 113. I'm going over. I think Anthony Hill's going to eclipse that this year easily.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I think it's Anthony Hill is the right choice there. And I think we're probably looking at, again, I don't think he goes 175 tackles or something stupid like that. But I think 120 feels like a good number. Again, I think he's going to get a lot of volume. I think the defensive tackles that Texas has brought in this year bode well for him being a tackle vacuum, right? When we think about guys like Gary Johnson at Texas, who had stupid tackle numbers, right? Like it's when Texas had some really space eater type of defensive tackles. And so I think that this harkens back to those days.
No, 100%. I don't disagree. Interception. So Makuba and Barron both had 5 interceptions. I'm going to go no here, but the guy that I just continue to see make plays in practice on the football is Jelani McDonald, and I think he could have 4. I think there's a really good possibility he ends up with 3 or 4 interceptions because I think he's going to play safety mostly, slide down to nickel in some games or the star position, but I think Jelani McDonald is going to lead the team in interceptions.
Yeah, I don't think Texas gets to 5 this year. I think, and again, I think Michael Taft is going to be the guy. I think that's just the role that he's starting to morph into, to be kind of a bit of that like roaming the secondary kind of guy. So I want Mookie to be the guy. but I don't think it's 5. I think you have more guys with interceptions because I think the interceptions were very concentrated in a few folks last year. And so I think you have multiple guys. You have more guys with 3, 2 and 3 interceptions rather than 2 guys with 10 of the 14 or 15 interceptions that Texas had.
Well, and I think a possibility too, you brought up the space eaters at defensive tackle, tip passes. If they know they can't really get back there in the backfield, they throw their hands up. We see that all the time. Hey, I'm not going to get there for whatever reason, throw the hands up. Texas, honestly, that might be the thing they haven't done great yet. Like Alfred Collins did a little bit last year and Tavondre Sweat did it a little bit, but the defensive tackles as a whole haven't really done it. I wonder if that's going to be taught a little bit more because you have more space eaters than pass rushers at the interior this year.
Yeah, the one thing that does make me feel like Texas might is Dwayne Aquina. Dwayne Aquina, I think, is going to have these dudes sharp. I am a big fan of Dwayne Aquina. Malik Muhammad talked about him over the weekend, how like it's weird that a 70-year-old man is one of the most energetic people on the field, right? Like Dwayne Aquina is one of the best teachers of technique in the country. And so with better technique comes better results. And so I think we could see that again. 5 is just such a big number.
Yeah, it is. Next up, tackles for loss. This will be the last category. 17 Anthony Hill had last year. I expect, honestly, I could see, I think I said this a couple of months ago when we kind of did something similar. I think we're going to have multiple guys beat that. I think Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill could have more than 17 tackles for loss this year.
I mean, if I have Colin Simmons at 10 plus sacks, then I think it seems fair that he's going to have more tackles for loss. So ultimately, I think, based on my other answers, I think Colin Simmons probably hits it. I do think you're right. Anthony Hill is kind of a menace when a quarterback decides that he's going to try to run a little bit. Anthony Hill has that second gear that you see when the quarterback kind of gets outside the pocket. Anthony Hill's coming downhill is just going to blow something up. So I think there's an opportunity there for, like you said, multiple guys. The one curiosity I have is what is the early season going to look like for Colin Simmons as folks focus on him, whereas it opens things up on the other side for a Colton Vasek, like an Ethan Burke or whoever that might be on the other side. So I think that could end up and result in one of those guys having a big early season where, you have a guy halfway through the year have 7 or 8, 9 tackles for loss because folks are double teaming and leaving a running back in for Colin Simmons on the opposite side. And then when they realize, we've got to pick our poison, that's when Colin Simmons sparks up. We saw that last year with Trey Moore, right? Where Trey Moore had a lot of attention early in the season. And then folks were like, this Colin Simmons kid is really good. And that's when Trey Moore's numbers came on. So it could be a situation where those are artificially deflated a bit just because of how teams have to pick their poison in the latter half of the year.
No, I think that's completely fair. I think a guy that's going to eat a lot in this defense is Brad Spence, because I think he's going to not someone you game plan around, but he's a really good football player, and he's going to be an NFL football player. And he really turned it on down the stretch once he realized he was the edge at Arkansas. I believe he had 4.5 sacks in his final 5 games or 6 games at Arkansas. Like once they designated him, hey, you're going to go out and get the quarterback. Guess what he was really good at? Going and getting the quarterback. So I think he's going to have a big year. That does it for better or worse this year. Void, we'll hit this question, then we're going to have a break. Do y'all think Ohio State will be our hardest regular season game? Jared, I'll let you go with that first.
It's hard for me to say that. I think if it's Ohio State week 6, probably a slam dunk. But I think because it's early and their offense still is going to be figuring some things out, I wouldn't be shocked if it's not somebody later in the year, whether it's a Georgia or whether it's Georgia's always the one that crops up because they beat Texas twice last year. Granted, I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year, but it could be a Georgia. If DJ Lagway is healthy, I think Florida is going to be an absolute nightmare. They're going to be a massive bear. And you know what? This is going to be the thing that gets us flamed this week, Matthew. I'm not a John Mateer believer. I'm a John Mateer truther. Go look at his Power 5 games a year ago and then come back and talk to me, right? So like if John Mateer is who everybody else thinks he is, then Oklahoma could be a really tough game. But if John Mateer is who I think he is, then I think we could have a different conversation. So I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. I think if we get Ohio State week 5 or 6, it's a slam dunk, yes. But I think because they're so early, I think it's going to be close.
No, I completely agree. It's all about the timing of when we get that team. That's why I said we beat Michigan early last year, because they weren't going to be the team they were at the end of the year. And they turned out to be a pretty good team at the end of the year, beating Ohio State and Alabama, because they kind of turned that corner everywhere. And I think Ohio State's going to be similar. They're not going to go 7-5 like I put out my predictions for them. I think they're a 10-2 football team, but they're going to be much better at the end of the year than they are at the beginning. I think most teams actually this year, that's going to be the case because you have a lot of new quarterback play. And usually when you have new quarterback play, you got to, get in a rhythm, find your rhythm in the offense. And that's what I think is going to happen with Ohio State. So right now, guys, I'll just give you a sneak peek because we won't make, permanent etched in stone predictions next week for this Texas team. I have us right now, unless something changes, 11-1, and I have us losing to Florida. So do I think they're our hardest game? No, but I think it's the time of the season where we're playing them at, and I still think DJ Lagway is going to be healthy by that time. So I think that I guess I would put them as our hardest game, but that's for right now. That's my one loss.
I'm glad you gave me plenty of lead time. I suck at predictions, so I'll need to take the whole week to prep for that.
That's fair. Guys, again, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. Also, the Amazon link is in the description. It is free. It does not change anything. And please use it. Puts a little bit of change in a Mark Rogers' pocket. And speaking of Mark Rogers, here he is.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
Thank you guys for using the link and hitting the like button and subscribing. We really appreciate it. So we'll touch on this again. We touched on it last week, but Jake Krell actually commits tomorrow, guys. And I think Texas might get some good news here. He is down to Texas, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss. So we talked about him a little bit last week, Gerald, but I want to ask you this question. Does this feel even better that we're taking him away from a rival and a guy that's a top 10 at his position?
Well, Steve Wiltfong had some news later this afternoon that signs might be looking in OU's direction. So, we could be in for some drama tomorrow. I was convinced that Texas got him off his timeline, and that's why he's committing to Texas. But if Texas does get him from Oklahoma, it confirms the Oklahoma's broke allegations, right? It confirms that Texas is able to push that again. And now, if they get him, then maybe Oklahoma spend their last 16 cents on getting him in the door. Ultimately, I think, if he decides to go to Texas, it's a massive win for Texas in a lot of ways because they have another difference maker at edge in this class. And ultimately, keeping him out of Norman and getting him to Austin for 1,001 reasons, right? It's your rival. You don't have to play him every year. And again, it's kind of another nail in the coffin, black eye for the Sooners.
No, I agree. And I think these battles used to happen all the time in the Big 12 where Texas and Oklahoma would go head to head for a player. We've kind of veered off in different directions. Texas has set its sights higher on better football players. Oklahoma kind of, playing with 3-star recruits. We heard Jim Nagy and his approach to recruiting. So that's very interesting. And this guy's a really good player, top 10 at his position, 6'3", 230 pounds out of IMG Academy in Florida. And he comes in as a day one pass rusher. We talked about this last week. I think he can come in, pass rush right away. That's what you're going to kind of do with him his freshman year. Do I expect Colin Simmons production from him? Absolutely not. Do I expect he could get, 3 to 4 sacks? Yeah, I do think he could do that his freshman year and then put on 15, 20 pounds of mass and end up being a better run. He'd be better versus the run and also be able to go after the quarterback. So I really like this player. And I also like that, we're going to possibly, hopefully beat out OU, It's been really quiet and interesting because he's not out there saying anything really. And then you have Steve Wiltfong, like you said, saying Oklahoma. A lot of Texas insiders have said, no, it's Texas because, again, he pushed up his time frame. He's supposed to commit in October. And anytime a player does that with smoke coming from one camp, it seems like they should be going there. And Oklahoma apparently, according to some sources as well, have kind of cooled on him because the price may have gotten too high. So I don't know if they got an influx of cash. I don't know what happened here, but this is the crazy world of NIL. And until that paper signed in December, it doesn't really matter. And does it help that we could land him tomorrow, yeah, it'd be awesome. But does it mean it's over? Absolutely not. I mean,
No.
we're hearing word now that Dia Bell's going to take a visit LSU. Don't really love that. Don't really love Derek Cooper visiting Georgia and Miami like he said he's going to do. So these commitments are never truly done unless they're not taking any visits. And I have a hard time thinking this guy's just going to be done visiting teams coming into the season.
No, and again, I think this is when you are recruiting at the level with the peers that Texas is recruiting, you can't, it's not for the weak and faint, right? It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for those with weak stomachs. Like, this is high level elite recruiting where you are going to have to recruit these guys, not just to the whistle, but through the whistle. You're gonna have to recruit them once they're on campus every fall and every spring to re-recruit these guys. This is part and parcel of the era of college football we're in. And it's, you know, some folks have negative things to say about it, player agency and all that, but ultimately, like, it's the reality we're living in. So we have to just deal with it.
No, 100%. And I do think, I mean, again, if he commits tomorrow, it's easier to keep someone in the boat than having to jump out in the middle of the ocean and get someone into the boat. So it'd be nice to land him tomorrow. But again, in this world of NIL, and a lot of people are predicting a lot of flips because a lot of these numbers that are thrown out about contracts aren't really true. Those aren't the real numbers. So it's going to be very, very interesting how all this goes down. And we'll see what happens tomorrow. And let's get your prediction, Gerald. Do you think he commits to Texas tomorrow?
Yeah, you know, it's still, again, I don't have sources on it, but just like I've been following recruiting for a long time, and anytime a guy moves up his timeline so drastically and you instantly start hearing smoke from one team, it seems to make sense that it's going to be that team. So I do still think it's probably Texas. You know, Wilt Fong hedged his bets in his post on the OU boards. He was like, well, we'll find out how we feel tomorrow. So, you know, again, we could have, you know, some games have been shipped there, but ultimately I think if Texas lands in, it's great. So I'm going to put my flag in the sand and say, yeah, Texas gets it done.
I'm going to agree. I think Texas does get it done tomorrow. Again, guys, he commits tomorrow, and we'll have not a live reaction, but we'll have a video up if he does commit to the University of Texas, just breaking down what he brings to the program and how good of a player he can be. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. This has been the 63rd edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We'll take this question, and then we'll get out of here. Who do you guys think has the better chance at winning the Ohio State job, Julian Sayin or Lincoln Kienholz or Kienholz? I think it's Julian Sayin, just because the pedigree, one. Two, it's kind of been, ever since he's gotten there, it's kind of been said that he's going to be the starter when his time comes. I think this is his time. It's hard for me to believe they're going to have a guy in his third year of the program start over a guy like Julian Sayin, but you never know. And all the reports now that are coming out seem to give him the lead in this quarterback competition as well.
Yeah, you know, I really think it's going to be I think Sayin's probably the guy as well. Again, I don't think Sayin is going to be, and I don't think Sayin will be happy if he, I mean, obviously he's not going to be happy if he has to sit, but I think the ceiling is so high for Sayin, and I think what he brings to the offense, his versatility, his skill set, I just think he's going to be the guy. Now, again, it could be a situation where, you know, if he comes in and struggles, you have a short leash on him. Where, you know, if he struggles against the Texas defense, do they bring in Kienholz? It could be a situation where that happens. But ultimately, I think when they trot themselves out there to face Texas in the first week of the season, I think Sayin's under center.
I completely agree. It's going to be interesting. I think we should know by the end of this week, honestly, because you want to give your full-time starter those 2 weeks leading up to the game. It really surprised. Like, if they're splitting reps, guys, I'm going to be super confident about Texas winning that game. I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. It's hard for me to believe they can split reps and beat Texas week one, but who knows? Yeah,
if it goes past this week, my Texas is gonna, and I wouldn't be shocked to see if Vegas starts to adjust things if they're still splitting reps. Because if you don't have a clear starter at this point, then like you don't have a guy at that point. Like, you just don't. So if Sayin's not slam dunk the winner this week, then my feelings about Ohio State and Texas start to swing in the Texas direction even more.
Yeah, and it's already gone down. I believe the original line was 3.5 because I have a bet on 3.5, 3. I'll bet it again when it's at 2.5. Or if it is there, I'll bet it again. I think it's going to be a pick 'em by game time. That's my opinion on that. I think it will get bet down to that.
Yeah. I mean, it's the home field advantage, right? That's what 3 points is, home field. So it's a toss-up.
Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. We really appreciate you guys being here for the 63rd edition. As always, we'll be here next week for the 64th edition, and we'll be 2 weeks away from the season. and really only 1 week, because that weekend will be Iowa State and Kansas State. So we will be making our full predictions for Texas Longhorns. We'll go through the schedule. We'll predict who we think we're going to win and lose to, set it in stone. And Gerald, I think we'll just do SEC predictions as well. We'll throw those up there, get them locked in stone, so people can say, hey, you're dumb for this, you're smart for this, da-da-da-da-da. We'll let the people decide.
I love having my face out there for people to call me stupid. It's great.
Again, guys, please hit that like button and subscribe. Also, go and follow Gerald at Twitter or Blue Sky. Right there is his handle, and his Longhorn Pod as well. You can check them out on iHeartRadio, Apple, Amazon, Spotify. It's all right there. Please check them out. We really appreciate that. You can follow me right there on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And we really appreciate you guys being here. As always, we'll wait. Void says it's 2.5 right now, so it's dropped a full point, and I'm going to bet it again. I'm betting every half point, boys. I'm betting every half point. So, again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. And as always, hook 'em.
Hook 'em, baby.